This video introduces you to Integrative Performing Training, a practice rooted in the breathing somatic work of Ilse Middendorf. For this introduction, all you require is a stool or a chair with a hard seat and a bit of space around it. Get comfortable on your seat, sitting in the middle of your stool or at the front of your chair. Close your eyes and feel the relationship to the seat and how gravity is keeping you in contact with it. Quickly scan from your toes all the way up to the head, over the feet, through the ankles, towards the knees, towards the hips, up through the torso, towards the shoulders. Scan down your arms towards your hands and back up towards the shoulders and up through the neck and the head. Appreciate the gravity that keeps us in contact with the chair and with the ground, but also have a sense of being carried. The relationship with gravity is an important one, but we mustn't feel pushed down in the process. Place your hands on your stomach and start to become aware of the relationship of movement between breathing in and breathing out. The expanding that happens as we breathe in and the swinging back as we breathe out. Ilse Middendorf speaks of 3 different sorts of breathing. There's unconscious breathing, which is how we breathe throughout most of our lives. Then there's voluntary breathing, where we direct or manipulate our breathing through our choice. We can do this together 3 times, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. But Middendorf discovered a 3rd sort of breathing, which lies somewhere between these other 2. She calls it perceptible breathing. And in this, we bring conscious awareness to the unconscious breathing movement. Middendorf also speaks of 3 different phases of the breath cycle at rest. There is inhalation, exhalation, and then there's a pause, a moment where we wait for the next inhalation to begin. And we're going to take a moment to observe and appreciate these 3 phases of the breath cycle. Bringing your awareness back to your hands on your stomach, we are going to isolate each of these phases of the breath cycle. We will start with the inhalation. When you feel ready to inhale, breathe in very actively. And then allow the exhalation to happen at its own pace. Allow the pause to be as long as it likes. And in the moment when your body feels ready to breathe in again, actively breathe in. Waiting for the exhalation, waiting for the pause. Just do this 1 or 2 times on your own. Then let that go and just allow 1 or 2 breath cycles to pass on their own. And next we'll focus on the exhalation with the same principle. We'll allow the pause to be what it wants. We'll allow the inhalation to come at its own pace. And in the moment of exhalation, just breathe out more actively. Then again, wait in the pause. Allow the inhalation to come at its own rate. And actively exhale. Now let that go and allow 1 or 2 breath cycles to pass on their own. And next we're going to isolate the pause. To do this, you just resist the urge to inhale ever so slightly by 1 or 2 seconds, and then let it go and allow the inhalation to follow. So the inhalation will be what it wants, so too will the exhalation. But then heighten your awareness of this pause and resist the urge to inhale just for 1 or 2 seconds. Then let it go and allow the inhalation to follow. Now just let that go and let all of these phases of the breath cycle happen at their own rate while you just observe. Middendorf refers to this as perceptible breathing, and she uses the phrase, "We let the breath come, we let it go, and wait for it to come back on its own." Now bringing your awareness back to your hands, we're going to observe the different parts of the torso that move as we inhale and exhale. Inhaling with expansion, exhaling with a swinging back movement, and then remembering this pause, this dynamic stillness. So we start with the stomach, letting the breath come, letting it go, and waiting for it to come back on its own. And then let your hands slide to one side. And then return to the stomach, passing through to the other side. Separate your hands, lean forward a little bit in your chair, and let your hands rest on your lower back. Letting the breath come, letting it go, and waiting for it to come back on its own. And then bring your hands again to the front and let them go under the armpits, crossing the arms with the thumbs forward. Then cross them even further as you give yourself a hug, so your hands can rest on the upper shoulders. Letting the breath come, letting it go, and waiting for it to come back on its own. And then finally let the hands rest on the upper chest. Now with your hands, give yourself a little massage, connecting all these different spaces from the upper chest to the armpits, down the sides, to the lower sides, and connecting the chest over to the stomach. And once you've touched all the parts of the front of your torso with your hands, lean forward in the chair, rubbing all the way around the lower back. You can flip one or both hands over so that the top of the hand goes further up towards the space between the shoulders. And then crossing the hands over to rub the shoulders and over the shoulders. And once you've touched all the parts of your torso, let the hands rest next to the body. Close your eyes again if they've opened, and bring your awareness back to the breathing movement, the expanding on inhalation, the swinging back on exhalation, and the dynamic stillness in the pause. And just see if you can still observe that movement as we scan around our torso, starting at the stomach, the sides, the lower back, the upper back, the armpits, and the upper chest. Letting the breath come, letting it go, and waiting for it to come back on its own. And now take your right hand to your left shoulder And just give a little massage around the shoulder joint. Once you've touched all the way around the shoulder, then brush from the shoulder down the arm towards the fingers 3 or 4 times. And then bring the left hand to the right shoulder and do the same, rubbing, massaging all the way around the joint, including the armpit. And then once you've touched all the way around the joint, brush from the shoulder down towards the hand 3 or 4 times. And then take both hands to the right hip and massage around the joint from the lower back where you touched before, from the lower stomach where you touched before, connecting those points over the joint of the hip, over the buttocks, on the inside of the leg, all the way around the joint. And then with both hands, brush down towards the knee and rub around the knee and brush from the knee down to the ankle with both hands. Then rub the ankle and then brush over the ankle, over the toes. And then do the same on the left hip, connecting the lower back where you touched before, over the buttocks, from the sides, over the hip on the side, from the lower stomach over the front, and remembering the inside of the leg, rubbing all the way around the joint, and then brushing with both hands down towards the knee. And then rubbing around the knee, and then brushing down from the knee towards the ankle, and then around the ankle, rubbing and brushing over the ankle, from the ankle towards the toes. And finally, take the hands from the upper chest, around the neck, all the way around the neck, connecting with the shoulders and the upper back that we touched previously, and then brushing from the back of the neck, over the back of the head, from the sides, over the ears, in the ears, touch inside the ears, up the side of the head, and from the front of the neck, over the chin, massaging the chin, the lips, under the nose, over the nose, around the eyes, over the forehead to the top, and then just touch the top of the head lightly. And then again, let your hands rest next to the body. Close your eyes again if they've opened. And bring your awareness back to the breathing movement, the expanding on inhalation, the swinging back on exhalation, and the dynamic stillness. And see if you can observe any movement that passes from the torso through the joints towards the outer extremities. From the stomach and the lower back through the hips towards the feet. From the upper chest through the shoulders towards the fingers. And from the torso up through the neck towards the head. And in the head also just observe there's 2 movements. We're breathing in and the air is moving inwards. And at the same time that inward movement is creating an expansion which is moving outwards. So we always have this contrary motion. Letting the breath come, letting it go, and waiting for it to come back on its own. Now imagine you've just woken up in the morning, you're lying in bed, and you just stretch to wake up. A big stretch across the big muscle groups across your body. And just begin a sequence of stretching and releasing. Listen to your body. Feel what needs to be stretched and stretch it. And it's just a simple sequence. Stretch, release, repeat. You can work with those big muscle groups all the way across the body, or find tiny little muscles that we don't even know what they're called. Big stretches and releases, little stretches and releases. Listening to your body and responding to what it wants. And continue in this loop. And as you do so, bring your awareness back to your breathing. Is there a relationship between the activities of stretching and releasing and those cycles of the breath? the inhalation, the exhalation, and the pause. Stretching, releasing, inhaling, exhaling. Just observe if you can find some connection between the two. Is it the same? Is it changing? One of the main principles in Middendorf's breathwork is this relationship of stretching and inhaling and releasing and exhaling. This is not always happening, but we can always observe this in the yawn. When we yawn, we breathe in, stretching the body, the lungs, the mouth, and as we release, we exhale. Do a few more stretches and releases and just observe if you can make this connection with the inhaling and exhaling. You can return to the yawn, which also reveals to us another interesting part of the breath cycle, which I call the suspension. As you breathe in the yawn, there's this moment where the air stays in the body, but the throat stays open before the exhalation begins. This is a key moment. Try to observe this suspension with some other stretches that you do. Stretch, maintain the air in your body, and then exhale. But be aware that it's also possible to maintain this stretch position with a closed throat. It's very obvious with this sound that you'll hear. A sudden gush of air as you begin the exhalation. Try one stretch-release movement in repetition, once with this gush of air happening, with the closing of the throat, and another time with the throat open. Just observe the difference. What's different in your breath? What changes in your throat? How does it feel in your body? What happens to the movement itself? In my experience, when we close the throat, we block the body, we block the possibilities. Whereas if we keep the throat open, there is a suspension of time and a suspension of possibilities. Also, the possibility for my movements change. With the throat open, I can pass through the suspension, moving in any number of ways during my exhalation. Whereas if I close the throat, I feel limited. After my body stops and blocks, I feel my only possibility is to retract from the direction I came. So as we go forward, try to keep the throat open, just allowing the breath cycle to freely flow without any inhibitions and without any obstructions. Slowly get up from the chair, but continue with the stretching and releasing. Focus more now on your hands, stretching up towards the sky. Reaching out to the space in front of you or to your sides. And reaching down towards the ground. Still letting the breath come, letting it go, waiting for it to come back, observing the relationship of inhaling, stretching, releasing and exhaling. And still aware of that expansion on inhalation and swinging back on exhalation. Now adding on to that loop of stretching and releasing, we start a loop of reaching up, reaching forward or to the side, and reaching down. These activities connect with what Middendorf refers to as the three spaces: the upper space, the middle space, and the lower space. Each of these spaces has a different breath direction connected with our exhalation. As we stretch up to the sky, breathing in, we breathe out with a descending action. As we reach towards the ground, we breathe in and we exhale as we come up. And as we reach forward or to the sides, it's just like that movement from the beginning, the expanding out and swinging back. So the upper space has a descending breath direction, whereas the lower space has an ascending breath direction. In addition to these three spaces, upper, middle, and lower, Middendorf speaks of two more, the inner and outer space. As we inhale, we can expand out to the world, observing it, appreciating it. And as we exhale, we can move more into our interior space, more introverted. Now just explore these spaces, the upper space, the middle space, the lower space, in connection with the inner space and the outer space. And on every inhalation, open up your gaze, open up your awareness to the space around you. And then as you exhale, let yourself come back inside yourself, observing your own body, your own feelings. Breathing in, looking out to the world, listening, smelling, feeling the temperature, the humidity, and then return to yourself and your inner climate. Now let go of the perceiving of the breathing and just move around freely in the space around you. Move your chair to a corner or out of your way and just explore moving. A little dance for yourself. Moving around, exploring the space, appreciating the space. And then every once in a while, just repeat one of the movements that you've discovered. Create a loop of this new movement. And then once you're in this loop, bring your awareness back to your breathing. Where in this movement is your inhaling? Where is your exhaling? Continue with that loop until it's clear where the inhalation and exhalation come, and then let it go and continue your movement. Dance. Explore the space around you, remembering going up and down and to the sides. And then again, find another movement and create a loop for yourself. And once you're in that loop, bring your awareness back to your breathing and just continue the loop until it's clear where you inhale, where you exhale, and then move on to the next. Gradually make your way back to your chair, or put it back in the middle of the room where you were before, and have a seat. Bring your hands back to your stomach, just appreciating again this inhaling and expansion, and exhaling and swinging back. Perhaps the breathing's happening more quickly since we've just been moving. Just observe it, letting the breath come, letting it go and waiting for it to come back on its own. Then when you're ready, just bring the hands and fingertips lightly to your throat and just let out a sigh. Observe the vibrations that happen in the throat. If you don't want to sigh, just speak some words, count to 10. Say the letters of the alphabet. Or hum. Just observe these vibrations which you can feel in your throat, which are a response to the vibrations of the vocal folds, the air passing through the vocal folds as you exhale. And now keep making sounds and just explore with your fingertips. Where can you feel vibrations? With a humming sound, put your fingers around your nose. Explore different sounds like zzz and vzz, and explore other parts of your head, your forehead, your cheeks, your chin, the back of the neck. Go back to the throat, feeling the vibrations there, and then explore a bit lower, towards the chest. Just as the breathing movement, the expanding on inhalation and swinging back on exhalation, is not restricted to the torso, but can pass through our shoulders and our neck and our hips towards our outer extremities, so too can these vibrations from our voicing pass throughout our body. Let one hand go to your stomach, while the other hand's fingertips rest gently on your neck. Just see if you can try and connect all of these points together. The breathing, connected with the moving, connecting with the voicing. In complete stillness, our breathing and moving and voicing become the basis for the possibilities of breathing, dancing, and singing.